Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to iMoot. I was going to say good afternoon, but I realized it's not afternoon for everybody. So it's my pleasure to introduce Stuart Mealor to present for us. Stuart's a great guy. I met Stuart back at Moodle New Zealand in Nelson back in 2014, and I've run into him in a few moots after that. He has really done so much for the Moodle community, not only in New Zealand, but really the entire worldwide community. He's very helpful Moodler for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years running. And HRDNZ has been a Moodle partner for over 10 years. I got nothing but good news to say about Stuart. Also, he's got the most awesome Regio plate ever. So anyway, I'm going to pass this over to Stuart, and he's going to tell us about some plugins.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I can only echo what Scott said there. We had Scott over at the Moodle Moot in New Zealand last year or the year before, I think last year. And, terrific guy. Obviously, many of you will have seen Scott's presentations at iMoots and at Moodle Moots and so on. And it's such a varied and kind of unique perspective and input on Moodle. Always a total pleasure to watch any of his presentations and indeed to meet him in person. So just like to say hello, welcome to everyone. It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever you happen to be at the moment. One of the wonderful things about iMoots is that half the people are awake and the other half are probably half asleep. So gadget man. So great to have you here. Well done to the iMoot team for getting this going again this year, which is I've actually done this is my third presentation so far, so that's all good fun. I'm just going to throw up a very quick poll for you to answer because it'd be nice to kind of know who is here or what your roles are in terms of Moodle. And I appreciate that many of you will have multiple roles, but feel free to make the choice that probably best reflects your main role with Moodle. Just about there, and I hope the sound's okay. Hopefully the sound is okay for everyone. I've got a digger outside, unfortunately, at the moment, so it's making a little bit of a noise. So if we just quickly publish those. Yeah, I've got a very good microphone. We use it for the podcast, horribly expensive. If we just publish those, we can see that most of the people here are admins. If you answered other, feel free to post in the chat there what you're defining yourself as if you want to, or you can just remain mysterious. That's absolutely fine. So as we'd expect with a kind of plugins session, we've got lots of admins here, which ironically is almost not what I want. I almost want teachers here more than admins, but you'll understand why as we go through the presentation today. But that's cool. Learning designer, excellent. Nice job. Okay, so let's I'll just do a quick introduction about myself, really. My name's Stuart. I do have a webcam here, but unfortunately it's one of these fancy Wi-Fi webcams, and it won't synchronize to the computer I'm using right now. It's probably locked to one of the other 10 or so laptops and desktops in my office here. I just can't get it released and get it synchronized with this one, but there's a little picture of me up there. I'm managing director of HRDNZ, Moodle partner for just over 10 years now. I am a PHM, particularly helpful Moodler, so quite proud of that. And my badges from 2017, 16, 15, 14, 13. When I put those up today, I thought, 2013. It feels like we've had badges forever in Moodle, but of course, very shy. Of course, we haven't had badges forever. Badges came along about that 2013 period. So just like we have AD and BC, maybe we should have BB for before badges. I'm also I'm also currently the certification manager for Moodle. So I run the MCCC and work with Moodle partners around the world implementing that. I'm also the facilitator for a number of areas on Moodle.org, like the database forum and the business uses forum. And I'm a plugins guardian, hence this rather wonderful badge. Plugins guardians are a small group of people who look after, in various ways, the plugins that are contributed to Moodle and put into the plugins directory. Used to be called the plugins database, but I think it's the plugins directory now. So David heads that up, and people like myself and Dan, who's also here in New Zealand. We will review plugins, we will rate plugins, we'll look quite in depth at installing them and making sure they work. Some of the people that are smarter than me will review the code for security and so on. The title Plugins Guardian sounds rather grandiose. It reminds me of Guardians of the Universe, so I'm not quite sure it's that grandiose. But yeah, we make quite a bit of effort to try and make sure that the plugins that are added to the plugins directory on Moodle.org are secure and stable and well documented and so on and so forth. And that's obviously why I have an interest in this particular subject today. We've actually been involved in the iMoot since the very start. We've been sponsored a few years. We're actually sponsoring this year as well. And we have a large number of our team, Tabitha, Miriam, Justin, Gareth, people that you'd recognize contributing to this over the years. And I've presented at it's probably more than 40 Moodle Moots now, actually worldwide, sometimes on plugins, sometimes on different sort of subjects as well. So as Scott mentioned, we are a Moodle partner. In terms of our Moodle work, that's how it kind of breaks down. So Moodle is part of what we do. And in terms of the Moodle work we do, probably 30-ish% is in this kind of technical area around development and plugins and technical stuff. So, we are dealing with these sorts of issues every day for our own hosting clients, and also just on ad hoc consultancy basis with other clients and organizations. We're probably best known for our Moodlebytes courses internationally. We have a whole range of courses there for teachers and designers and administrators. And now we also have theme development courses and developer courses. So the theme design courses are run by Gareth, who is the maintainer of the Essential theme. So you couldn't really get anyone better than that to run a course on theme design. And our developer courses are facilitated by Justin Hunt, who of course develops the Poodle project and a number of other fantastic plugins for Moodle. So if you wanted to learn about development in a course, there's really no one better than Justin to do that. So yeah, our courses are international, and probably 90%, if not higher, of the people we work with on those courses are international. So yeah, have a look at that site if you're interested in training for yourself or your staff. I often say this, though, that Moodle partners are not McDonald's. McDonald's, if you go into a McDonald's anywhere in the world, you get pretty much the same thing, the same menu, the same types of service. Moodle partners are quite different. We're all very different. And one of the things that we do, that we focus on, is community support. So doing lots of things for free as well, wherever we can. So we have a Moodle podcast, and I'm just going to do a little poll to see how many people have heard or in fact listened to the free Moodle podcast. You get a bonus point there, Maureen. Well done. So just over half of people here are aware of or have listened to the free Moodle podcast. So this is a monthly podcast we put out on about Moodle and e-learning systems and things that integrate and marry up with Moodle. You can either listen to it on iTunes. So if you're an Apple user or an iTunes user, you can just find it in there and listen to it there. If you're not into iTunes or you're not into Apple, or you really don't like iTunes because it's pretty heavy, you can also listen directly on SoundCloud. And SoundCloud allows you to just play that directly in your browser or on your mobile device, which is really cool. And these two things are exactly the same. So when we publish the podcasts, it goes through to iTunes and it goes through to SoundCloud at the same time. So you get exactly the same thing. It's just whichever access method suits you is what you choose. So that's pretty good. It's quite time consuming, but it's a lot of fun. We have our Moodle Mobile MOOC, which is a free event that we run twice a year. Unfortunately, you've just missed the 1st of May start date. We run it twice a year, starting on the 1st of May and the 1st of November. So and that's actually complete. It's in English and it's in French, so it's completely multilingual. And it really just shows people how to design Moodle courses in a very practical sense for mobile devices, and it also shows you how to use the Moodle mobile app properly. Many people we see download the app and really struggle with it, can't quite work out the best way to use it or what it can do, what it can't do. And this MOOC takes people through that. So by the end of these 4 weeks, they're just expert and using the mobile app quite happily and showing their students how to use it and so on. So that's a really good, fun event. So you've missed this one, unfortunately, but maybe bookmark the site mobile.moodlebytes.com or just search for it and the free Moodle mobile MOOC, and then join up for November, or obviously let other people know as well. We do also have a site that provides free hosting. This started around 7 years ago and is really where people can host a Moodle course entirely for free. Of course, Moodle Cloud has come along in the last couple of years and it sort of overlaps this provision in some ways. So at the moment, we're trying to think about how we can slightly re-engineer freemoodle.org to still be relevant and appropriate without overlapping what people can do with Moodle Cloud. So it's probably going to get far more community orientated. And then finally, the last thing that's free I wanted to draw your attention to is a new project, really, elearningworld.org. I can't say too much about this at the moment. There are some amazing plans and some amazing things in motion at the moment. And basically in June, you will start to see those. So if you are interested in Moodle and you're interested in e-learning in general, then I suggest that you bookmark that site now and then revisit it in June, because there will be some really good stuff on there. Seriously, I'm totally excited about that project at the moment. So the M in Moodle means modular. Most people know that. Historically, when Moodle started, the M actually stood for, anyone know? Anyone know that piece of Moodle history? Who can type quickest? It actually stood for Martin's object-orientated dynamic learning environment. But of course, that was fine when it was a one-man project. It's clearly not a one-man project anymore, is it? It's a juggernaut of e-learning. So modular makes far more sense, and it kind of also really leads us into thinking about what that means. It's fundamental to Moodle that it's modular. Okay, that's important. Sometimes I get a lot of teachers looking at this subject, and so I like to provide some simple analogies. I know we've got a lot of administrators here today, so this is going to seem rather simplistic, so I'll go through this quite quickly. But here's a browser. So we all use browsers, whether that's Firefox or Chrome or Safari or whatever. And of course, the browser comes with a set of functions, and we then add in our own plugins or add-ins. So we can extend the function of a browser, an application, really simply. That's what we do. We're kind of all familiar with that. Can you just let me know if you actually do install plugins in your browser, or extensions or add-ins? I guess it depends which browser you're using as to which terminology is used. But essentially, it's all the same thing. It basically means, okay, here's your core program, here's your browser, and we can extend the functionality of that by simply installing a plugin or an add-in. Anymore? Okay. So as we can see, lots of people very happy with that analogy, and given the audience here today, I would expect that. Right? Most people would at some point want to install some type of plugin in a browser, even if it's not something you particularly want to do. It might be something that you need to do for a particular reason. Another analogy, I'll just go through this one quickly, might be if you were thinking about a system like Excel. You have lots of functions that are available in there, but if you think about it, if you had a word processor that didn't have the ability to create charts, or didn't have the ability to trace precedent cells, or didn't have the ability to add comments, then that might be something that you could do using a plugin. And of course, there are plugins for systems like Excel. So really, the idea of Moodle being a central, if we think about it being a tree, so the Moodle code, the distribution that we install is the trunk, and then we could install lots of extra branches onto that do different things. It's the same kind of approach. This is almost the most important slide here. I'm saying that because everything else hangs off this in a way. So the plugin that most people, almost everyone, even teachers that aren't technical, kind of understand is themes, because of course Moodle, when you install it, has a couple of fairly basic themes. But if we look around all the Moodle sites in the world, they're vastly different in their appearance. And the main way to achieve that is by using themes. So themes are just a bit of code that you plug into Moodle and make it look different. Cool. Blocks are a very popular plugin. The blocks that sit at the side of courses, they're very popular because they're actually relatively easy for new developers to understand and to adapt. So it's relatively easy to take an existing block, clone it, and then change it to just do a few different things. So there's hundreds of blocks available for Moodle. We have activity modules. So just like you have your standard quiz and forum and chat, these are the standard activities within Moodle. But two plugins that we all know these days are the book and the feedback module. Now, they were in fact both plugins, contributed plugins for many, many years. They were something that you could get from the plugins directory and add to your site. But of course, because they're hugely popular and very powerful, they've now been absorbed into the main code base for Moodle. So because they were so good, everyone now gets them. Anyone that installs Moodle today will get those and doesn't have to then install them as a plugin later, which is pretty cool. And shows a really interesting kind of development cycle as well. After that, we have things like assignment plugins, different ways of submitting assignments or feeding back on assignments. Obviously LTI, so that we can operate with different systems. Quiz reports, popular. Of course, we can also add new quiz questions. So again, recently in Moodle, we've seen a whole load of new question types, which were developed by the Open University, and those really cool drag and drop type questions. Now, they were developed by the Open University in the UK, Tim Hunt and that group of people, and developed over a number of years, hugely popular there. And then because so many people have been adding them into Moodle anyway, why not just add that into the main code base? Yeah. Other types of reports, other types of plugins, course formats. We all know the weekly format and the topic format, but there are other very popular formats, such as the tab format and the grid format. And then, of course, we have things like reports and ways of getting data in and out of the gradebook. So if we had plugins, all these would kind of make sense to teachers. They'd sort of understand what's going on. On the other side of the list, these are plugin types that are available in Moodle that are more administrator focused generally. Antivirus type plugins, extensions to the editor, for example. You can write a new function and then add a button into the editor so that people can access that function directly there. Enrollment and authentication, important area for administrators. And although Moodle comes with lots of enrollment and authentication methods, you might decide that on your site, you need everyone to be able to authenticate as users using their Facebook login or their LinkedIn login. And there are plugins that will enable you to do just that. Web services are kind of around there's a lot of web services to do with mobile access of Moodle sites. Repositories and portfolios, teachers will, understand what those are, but it's clearly for administrators to understand what the needs are. Do we need the Google, repository? Do we need a Mahara portfolio and so on? And then there's a final group of, I'm not going to go through everyone, but there's a final group of plugins called local. And that is basically things that don't fit neatly in any of the other plugin types. Ironically, when you create a plugin, it should fit in one of these sort of categories. That's not all the categories, by the way. There are a few more. But sometimes you write a plugin, a function that just does not sit neatly within any of these. And in that case, it would be termed a local plugin. Is this making, let's do a quick thing. Is this making sense to people so far? Everyone happy with the pace and what we're saying? Wow, we have a very good group. 100% of people are happy. I should take a screenshot of that before I go any further. 100% of people were happy at this point. I won't say that. Okay, that's good. So here is the plugins directory, and I'm sure that most of you, being administrators or certainly interested in plugins, are familiar with this. If I just zoom in a little bit, there's quite, as well as being able to search for plugins by their name, there's some interesting metadata here that we can look at plugins in terms of, for example, the number of sites that they are used on, the number of times the plugin has been downloaded. Fans just is a number calculated from when people add a plugin to their favorites list. And then, of course, we've got recently updated, which is an important consideration, or recently added, which, of course, is going to show new plugins that are relatively new anyway. So there's some useful kind of metadata there. If you're looking for plugins and thinking about plugins, don't underestimate looking at some of this, because if a plugin has been used on 10,000 sites, you can almost automatically assume that it must be worth at least looking at because so many other people are finding it valuable, right? So, there's some good information just right there in terms of plugins. However, there are of course, considerations. Now, we, as a Moodle partner, we install hundreds of plugins. I mean, we've probably installed thousands of plugins over the years, but certainly hundreds a year for our clients, and then sometimes for people that just come to us and say, we just need a bit of help with this, so we'll help them through that. So we've got a lot of experience, on the ground of installing, removing, updating plugins and understanding some of the challenges. Moodle HQ actually published data for Moodle partners on the way plugins are used as well, from the data that they collect. As we've seen, the plugins database provides some useful data. Sometimes we will just literally be testing a plugin for fun. We'll see a new plugin and we'll think, oh, that's interesting. Can't think of why we need it, but let's install it anyway and see what it does, because you never know. So we're constantly, installing these and deleting them and trashing a site just to understand what these plugins are doing. And sometimes it may even give us something that we don't need to use for a client, but maybe it's just something that's really good for us. Maybe it's a plugin that allows us to monitor course sizes on our client sites. So that could just be a really useful little plugin for us. So lots of reasons, lots of information around plugins, right? Lots of different areas to go to find things out, lots of different ways to find things out. But there are some real important considerations here. Too many plugins can create problems. You absolutely need, on a production site, your plugins to be secure, reliable. So unlike the Moodle core code, which goes through a tremendously detailed checking system, has multiple people at Moodle HQ looking at the code, and then of course has multiple developers all around the world looking at the code, right? That's how the Moodle code itself is reviewed. If you have a plugin that's developed maybe by a very talented developer sitting somewhere in a back office, he's asked to develop something, and maybe even though he does his absolute best, maybe he doesn't understand all the levels of complexity. Maybe his code isn't as perfectly secure and scalable as so on as code that's been through such big reviews elsewhere. So it's important that your plugins are secure, reliable, and I've added sustainable, because if a great plugin came out next month, we shouldn't all be necessarily installing that on our site, because it may be that the developer of that plugin won't be working on that in a year's time. So it's really important that we are looking ahead and not just looking at what's this going to give us tomorrow or what's this going to give us, today. We need to think ahead. And I've seen sites, no names, where I've seen sites that have had 15, 20, 25 plugins. And when it comes to upgrade time, those sites cannot be upgraded because the plugins that they are now relying on are not being updated. So the position that those organizations are then in are having to stay with an old version of Moodle, which eventually, of course, will be unsupported and not getting bug fixes and become insecure, just because they've got a plugin that they installed that everyone now relies on. So not only can they not upgrade, they're actually losing all the new functionality that Moodle is bringing out in each version just because of that one plugin that they now rely on. So it's really important that we think about those things. I would say there are around 40 plugins that are in that top tier. They've been around a long time, they're well maintained, they're well documented, etc. And I'm ignoring themes in this, okay, just ignoring themes. Now the plugins directory allows people to review and to rate these plugins, and I do a lot of that with my plugins Guardian head-on, and that's useful. But of course, teachers can go in there and read about it and see a screenshot and a description, but that's only so useful to them. There's no way for teachers to actually try these things out. I mean, as an administrator, you can download a plugin or you can install a plugin on your development or test site, have a look at it. Teachers can't do that, right? I know there are a few teachers out there that are really technical and have their own sites and so on, but the vast majority of teachers, the plugins database is almost inaccessible to them because they can't really do anything. They can only have a cursory overview of what these plugins may in fact do. So this is where we introduce the concept of plugins.moodlebytes.com. Right, so this is the address that you can make a note of. It's been around for quite a few years actually now, but it's undergone a major reorganization earlier this year. And the idea here is, let me go on, that we have between 50 and 100 live plugins that anyone can use. So absolutely anyone can go and register on this site and try plugins for real. So we've selected the most popular and the most generically useful. So you know, as we increase the number, I think there's about 52 or so plugins there at the moment. You know, we go for the most popular: questionnaire, certificate, progress bar, the things that, you know, we know many people want to understand and know about and potentially install. And also I say generically useful because there may be some plugins that are absolutely fantastic but only have a really, really small potential audience. So, you know, we may get around to those eventually, but right now we're going for the low-hanging fruit. You know, we're trying to do something that's useful for as many people as possible. And then not just have those plugins there, but provide practical examples of how to use them. So if we're installing a plugin that is demonstrating the certificate module, then make sure there's a certificate there that people can actually use, but can actually get, so they see how it works. Importantly, we are linking back to the plugins directory and documentation. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're not trying to double up on what already exists. We're trying to build something, well, we are building something that directly complements what's already happening there. Yeah. And of course, doing this, it's entirely for free. You know, anyone can use it. But it has some uses for us, for our own staff. We can obviously show clients some of these things, and, you know, in a soft marketing sense, maybe people come along, see the plugins Moodlebytes.com site, see the links to our Moodle Bytes courses. So there's a level of you know, low level soft marketing in there as well, and why not? You know, we still need to pay the bills. So if we tried to make the site really easy for people as well. So obviously you can see there's a list of the courses. So I'll explain the teachers area in a minute. So the courses are just listed alphabetically. And then there's a little menu which basically shows the different plugins in sensible groups, if you like. So first of all, we have blocks. So some of these blocks I'm sure that you will be aware of and know about. Progress bar, obviously very popular. The appointments block, very popular. We then have activities. Again, some of these activities you will be familiar with and probably using right now. Hotpot, questionnaire, quick mail, all very popular. And then we have a third set, which are other things. So they're not blocks, they're not activities, but they are other really quite interesting course formats or you know, plugins of some other description or some other type. So we tried to make that very simple for people to access. We also have another way of searching for those. You can just use tags. So we tag all the courses or the resources so that people can actually just use tags to find things instead. You may not know that you may not know there's a module called you know, booking. So if you come in here, you'll see that straight away. So trying to make it simple, because this is, as I said, it's almost a site that's it's almost more useful for teachers than it is for admins, almost. So just to think about, so when you register, there's lots of courses in there, as we've seen, and the courses themselves are there's some commonality here. So we will have an area which links back for people, hoping that doesn't lag too much on the screen for you. So we link back to, so we have a discussion area on here, but we almost don't want to use that. We want people to go back to the plugins directory and discuss with the developers there. But we've got some links to the Twitter feeds and so on. So linking back, not trying to replicate everything, trying to tie in with what already exists. We do have a very simple comments block in each course, so that if you've been in here for 5 minutes, you've had a little play around, you found it interesting, or you found it frustrating, or it wasn't what you thought, you can just leave a simple comment there. Don't have to get involved in big discussions or anything, but that's probably quite useful feedback for us, particularly if something breaks after an upgrade, for example. So very simple facility to add comments there. And then of course we have just to hear, we need to be able to demonstrate these things as well. So we put a little bit of effort into saying, okay, this is the completion progress block. So to actually see that working and to actually come in here and try it out and get some value from it, you really need some activities in here which are going to track your progress, right? So, obvious. So yeah, we just give a couple of, so there's a page that you click, and then of course it ticks your completion. There's a choice which will tick your completion when you when you submit your choice, and there's a quick online text assignment that will obviously tick off when you've completed that. And that will mean, hopefully, that all that information will of course flow through into the progress block itself and show you exactly what that does. So this is a long way away from just reading something and trying to understand what it does. This site will provides the ability to actually go in there and see exactly how it's going to work from a student's perspective. So I think quite a useful function. So just to kind of summarize what's in there, it is completely open, completely free. It has guest access. All the courses have got guest access, but of course you're going to get far more value out of that if you create an account, and we can actually add you then as a proper user. We do use a manual approval process. So when you try to register, an email will come through to one of us, and we basically tick you off using a plugin, in fact, and that then adds you automatically to the teachers area. And then using meta enrollments or some cool enrollment plugin, it then adds you to all of the other courses automatically. So even if there are new courses added, you automatically get those as soon as they're available. So a nice, hopefully slick enrollment process, which gets you into all those courses to play around with straight away. Couple of points. I'm sure this makes sense to most of you as administrators. None of the plugins that we feature require changes to the Moodle core code. And that's partly because that is a step up from just installing a plugin. As soon as you get into editing core code, even a minuscule amount, that has big implications for how you upgrade and so on. So none of the plugins that we feature here require changes to core code. We also will only feature plugins that have a good history of support and release. So if a plugin has been there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if it's been regularly updated, if it's been updated, certainly each time there's a Moodle version, a new version of Moodle, and it's been updated within a month or so, then yes, we'll feature that. We don't want to encourage people to use poor plugins. We really only want to show good plugins here. And then one of our key criteria, if we install the plugin ourselves and it doesn't work perfectly first time, it doesn't make the list, right? Because again, we don't want to help people get into their own problems. So that's kind of almost our first criteria. That plugin has to do what it says on the tin. It has to install as the instructions say and work perfectly first time. We do also exclude some plugins that are really, really, fantastic, but we exclude them because maybe they're only, we can only demonstrate them if you were an admin. And clearly, however much we love you, we're not going to give you admin level access to our site. Sorry if that disappoints you. So that's the idea. Currently, we've got just over 50 plugins. We aim to have towards 100 by the end of the year. I can't believe I wrote that number down in a presentation. We're going to have more than 50. Whether we ever get to 100 or not is debatable, but I think even 60 or 70 of the most popular, most used plugins there that everyone can use is actually brilliant anyway. We obviously ask people now to start promoting the site. It was rejigged quite a lot, re-engineered quite a lot at the beginning of this year. So we're happy now for people to promote this and let other people find it and benefit from it. One thing we would like to do is, if people are really interested in this area and you've got a little bit of spare time, one thing that we know creates real value is building some good examples in those courses for people. So if we have a new plugin for a particular assignment type, then the best value is really if we can create some assignment types using that in that course. And of course, if we have different people doing that, it provides that more variety and different approaches rather than just our team. We have good experience, but we've obviously all got our own ways of doing things and our own focuses. So if we have a couple of other people helping in that area, I think it will actually make the examples and the examples just far better for people, far more varied. And of course, we want to get suggestions from you, certainly following this. So I did say if there's time, we could do a live tour. There's probably no need to do a live tour, not for the audience that we have here today, certainly. Even those of you who aren't Moodle administrators, I know most of the names here. You've been involved in Moodle for a long time. But of course, I would absolutely love to hear any comments or ideas or suggestions or feedback in terms of how we can, make further improvements to the site, not just in terms of the number of plugins, but maybe there's other approaches, other ideas that can make it even more useful. And of course, I'm happy to take questions here, either in the chat or on the mic, or you can ask those in the forum. There's the course forum for this particular session, or you can of course email me. I'm fairly easy to find online, stuart@hrdnz.com. That'll get to me. So yeah, that concludes this session. I don't know whether anyone's got any feedback or comments or questions right now. Please feel free to jump in. I noticed Maureen, I think, said, how's this been going for so long? I didn't know about it. Because for the first few years, quite honestly, we just used it for our own internal team and for showing our own clients things. I mean, there's no point building a site to show the certificate module every time you have another client. So it made sense for us to have a central site that we used for such things. But then, a couple of years ago, we went, well, why don't we just make this available for everyone? And then it took some re-engineering to make it simple and easy for people to use. So it doesn't surprise me that you didn't necessarily know about this, but certainly we're hoping that it becomes Tabitha was keeping it a secret. We certainly hope and expect it to become a lot more high profile over the coming months. Janice, what can we access differently if we register via entering as a guest? Well, as a guest, we're not. As a guest, you're obviously totally anonymous, so you're quite free. You can, if you log in as a guest, you will get access to all those courses, but all you will be doing is looking at them. So So you won't be able to post, for example, to the teachers area. You won't be able to complete an assignment if that is the if that's the module that you're looking at. So you won't be able to. It's just like any normal Moodle site. If you're a guest, you can't kind of submit anything. You can only view everything. But if you are a teacher, or if you're logged in as a user rather, then you're basically seeing everything from a real student perspective, and you're able to do everything and see everything. Yeah, Mike. Yes, Generico. I mean, we're probably going to put Poodle in here quite soon. And I think Generico is actually part of Poodle now, isn't it? Almost certain of that. So yes, that's on our list. But Poodle is, of course, quite a complex plugin. I'm not saying it's difficult, but there's certainly a number of different elements to that. And I think we're just trying to work out whether we should have one course for the Poodle assignment, one course that shows how the Generico filter works, or whether that should all be in one course. I think at the moment we're probably going to split it, just because it makes it easier for people that aren't familiar with it. But there's pros and cons to both ways. Yes, I know Justin really well, and so Justin will be presenting on that. And yeah, Mike, try not to think of the dodgy plugins you've got. Yeah, it's no different to any other system, really, is it? It's, you can install plugins in WordPress and then find out they're not supported and have to find an alternative. That obviously usually isn't as critical as having something like an assignment plugin or a submission plugin that suddenly stops working or isn't maintained. That's a kind of mission critical plugin, isn't it? Yeah. Don't tell me stories about WordPress, Scott. That's I have nightmares myself. So yeah, people, feel free to try out the site, let other people know about it, and give us any feedback, give us ideas, and I hope that's been useful. And enjoy the rest of the iMoot. I think we're giving some prizes away, so I think Wendy is going to let people know about those prizes. We're giving a couple of prizes for our Moodle Bytes courses. I think there's one for a teacher, one for an administrator, and maybe one for a theme developer. But she has the info on that. So thanks, everyone. Hope that was useful. And thanks for your time. Very much enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That was really great. I hadn't heard of plugins at Moodle Bytes. That was fantastic, and I'm definitely going to plug that to people. So thank you very much, and come find me in Orange's Cafe if you want to hear some of my WordPress plugin stories. I got a really good one for you. But there's some interesting sessions coming up, so thank you very much, Stuart, and enjoy iMoot, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.